Good evening, and welcome to Roleplaying in Video Games, a storytelling series all about your favorite RPGs. Tonight's story comes from Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, specifically the wonderful Final Nights mod by Team Camarilla International. I'll be playing as Tyler Hendricks, a vampire of the mostly extinct Salubri bloodline. Depending on who you ask, Tyler is either the luckiest or unluckiest woman on the entire West Coast. The truth, as usual, lies somewhere in the middle. She has a tendency to stumble into bad situations, but she always stumbles head first, with a mind for solving whatever problem she finds herself in. She used to be a detective with the LAPD, but resigned to become a private investigator due to rampant corruption from those around her. Unfortunately for Tyler, a certain case would see her lured into the clutches of a vampire. Well, you can probably guess what happened next. Shortly after the embrace, the two are captured by the Camarilla, the local vampire government. Tyler's sire is charged with embracing a vampire without permission, while Tyler is simply collateral damage. Her sire is swiftly executed, but before the same can be done to her, she's saved by Nines Rodriguez, another influential vampire standing up for her in court. So, Tyler is forced to exchange her freedom for her life, becoming the personal servant of the Camarilla's leader, Prince Sebastian LaCroix. Tyler's first mission for LaCroix takes her to Santa Monica, where she gets her first chance to really stretch her night legs. She struggles with feeding on humans, both on a moral and a practical level, but manages to keep herself fed off of rats in the sewers and the nearby corrupt blood bank. Before she learns how the bastards behind this place get their blood, that is. So, for the time being, mostly rats. As for the actual mission she was sent here to do, it's intense. As in, the first step of the mission is to acquire explosives from drug dealers out on the beach. Apparently, there's another group of vampires called the Sabbat, who openly indulge in their monstrous natures. They have a warehouse in Santa Monica, and it's Tyler's job to blow it up. Okay, a little intense, but after seeing what happened to her sire's body, Tyler has no real issue killing vampires. I mean, the way they just turn to dust, it's like they're not even real. Unfortunately, to gain access to the warehouse, she has to do some favors for Therese Vorman, a vampire who has bad blood with Bertram Tongue, the vampire who was supposed to be helping Tyler because he's been conspiring against Therese with Therese's sister, Jeanette.
Everybody got that?
Tyler's first errand for Therese is probably the most intense, going into a haunted house and recovering some kind of item from it so that the spirits within may be exorcised. So apparently ghosts are real now? Whatever. She heads into the Ocean House Hotel and... Oh no. What the hell is this? What the After grabbing the pendant and getting the hell away from that whole situation, Tyler runs into Jeanette, who has an interesting method of persuasion.
I could have been undressing, and who knows what I would have had to do to you.
Tyler doesn't crack and hand her the amulet, but she ends up getting drawn into running a favor for Jeanette. A favor which ends up putting her back on Therese's bad side.
You. What were you thinking? The museum. That was my event! Did you think I wouldn't find out?
After a long string of back and forth errands, Tyler ends up caught in a standoff between the two sisters, who, as it turns out, have dissociative identity disorder. Through the argument between the two, it becomes clear that they have some very serious issues in their pasts that need resolving, which triggers Tyler's detective instincts something fierce. But unfortunately, before she can get both sides of the story, Therese kills Jeanette? Well, as an upside to all of this, Tyler is finally able to get in touch with Bertram, this charming gentleman. Really, he's a pretty nice guy. Well, maybe not nice, but he's refreshingly honest and straightforward, though not enough to fully calm her nerves before the warehouse. This mission is Tyler's first real taste of the nightly violence vampires go through. Getting inside the warehouse isn't too difficult or too violent, but getting into the office requires blasting through the Sabbat's human foot soldiers. Tyler only manages to keep composure by only opening fire after the guards do. Once she manages to place the bomb, things somehow go even more off the rails with an actual vampire, one with an inhuman level of speed. With her back against the wall, Tyler is forced to resort to quick thinking to outwit this clearly superior foe by running away. And just like that, the bomb goes off. The entire warehouse is blown sky high in an instant. But before Tyler can even process what she's just done,
The warehouse. Your handiwork, I presume?
this is Beckett, a vampiric archaeologist with no small reputation around here. He asks Tyler if she's experienced anything strange since she became a vampire, which... yes? Though apparently that's not what he means. A lot of local vampires have apparently been feeling a sense of dread recently, though no one can quite put their fingers on why. Weird. Maybe something to look into later. Well, at least Tyler's work here is finally done. Now she can head back downtown and... yeah, these are apparently the Sabbat, and they are none too happy about Tyler destroying their warehouse. Before they could do any real harm, though, Tyler is once again saved by Nines Rodriguez, though this time in a much more direct fashion.
Leave.
Tyler and Nines head down to the Last Round bar, where Tyler is introduced to the Anarch movement. The Anarchs have apparently been the dominant force for most of LA's history, opposing the Camarilla at every turn. But unlike the Sabbat, the Anarchs have no issues with upholding the Masquerade or generally not being genocidal. What they oppose are the Camarilla's fascistic tendencies and pyramid scheme hierarchy. Tyler also meets Damsel, the group's firebrand, Skelter, a brooding philosopher type, and Smiling Jack, who's apparently a legend among the Anarchs, in and out of LA. Tyler is intrigued by all of this. The Camarilla reminds her a bit too much of her old precinct, but these guys have the right idea. She and Damsel work out a deal, where Tyler will continue playing the role of LaCroix's new servant, but provide regular updates on his actions to the movement. Speaking of LaCroix, best not to keep the man waiting. He does give Tyler credit for a job well done, but almost immediately sends her to run another errand, though this time it's much less bloody. Recently, a ship carrying a strange sarcophagus washed ashore with its entire crew missing, and speculation is rampant about what could have caused something like this, in kindred and mortal communities alike. So Tyler is to sneak aboard the ship, inspect the sarcophagus, and grab a cargo manifest to see what other items of interest the ship might have been carrying. The mission goes well. Tyler manages to avoid conflict with the police, get the manifest, and take some notes on the sarcophagus. Without an archaeology degree, it's difficult for her to make out anything of interest, but the sarcophagus does have handprints on it, suggesting it might have been opened from the inside. After a quick report to the Anarchs, Tyler returns to the Croix to hand over her findings. While he reviews these findings, he has, surprise surprise, another job for Tyler. Alistair Grout, the elder of Clan Malkavian within LA, has recently gone quiet and refused to show up to any important gatherings. So it's Tyler's job to visit his mansion and pull him out of whatever hole he's crawled into. Unfortunately, this initially simple premise quickly goes off the rails. When Tyler arrives, she finds Nines walking out of Grout's mansion. He barely says 2 sentences to her before just walking away dismissively. And inside the mansion isn't much better. Grout is apparently a psychiatrist and has been performing cruel experiments in the basement of his mansion, seeking a cure for some sort of affliction, and it would appear that someone let his subjects loose recently. Even worse, Grout's experimentation has had permanent effects on the minds of these poor souls. Most of them attack Tyler on sight, and while she does her best to sneak around the rest, she has no choice but to resort to violence for these, putting them out of their misery. That is what she's doing. After making her way through this madhouse, Grout's cruel audio diary is her only company, Tyler makes it to Grout's innermost sanctum, where she finds his body, reduced to a dust-covered skeleton with a wooden stake where his heart should be. And shortly after that, the entire mansion erupts into flames. Apparently, this guy, Grunfeldbach, is a vampire hunter and torched the house to kill Grout and draw out LaCroix. Though, surprisingly, he doesn't claim to have been responsible for Grout's death, which only leaves... Oh shit, yeah, the house is on fire. Back downtown, Tyler is conflicted. Obviously, she believes in the Anarch cause, but well, she doesn't really know Nines that well. Plus, even if he is this revolutionary saint, does that give him the right to just murder Grout? Ultimately, a talk with Smiling Jack pushes her in the right direction. You do what you gotta do. So, against the wishes of the movement, she reports Grout's death and Nines' presence at the crime scene to LaCroix. Skelter and Damsel are none too happy about this, but she's in too valuable a position for them to just kick her out. Still, she's in pretty hot water with the group going forward. While LaCroix considers his next step, he sends Tyler on a brief vacation, giving her a well-earned rest, a new apartment, even a new cut. Nah, I'm just kidding. He has more fucking errands for her to run. This time, he sends her to the Museum of Natural History to steal the sarcophagus and bring it to the Camarilla. For everyone's safety, of course. Oh, and he does actually give her a new apartment. That part wasn't a lie, so, that's cool. The museum mission goes about as well as it can for Tyler. She doesn't even have to pull out her gun, thank God. Unfortunately, when she gets to the basement, the sarcophagus has been stolen. Oh, and Beckett's also here. Weird and off-putting as he might be, Tyler doesn't really suspect Beckett for the theft. Even with what they say about suspects returning to the scene of the crime, this is a scene with one hell of a trek. The two do have a conversation about the sarcophagus, in which Tyler learns why everyone is so riled up about this thing. A central part of vampire lore is the concept of the antediluvians, the 13 vampires who founded the clans. Legend has it that these ancient creatures have been slumbering for centuries, and when they wake up, they will scour the entire planet for blood, and won't stop until they've sated their thirst on every vampire in existence. This is Gehenna, the end of the kindred race as we know it. But Beckett assures us it's probably not real, and who wouldn't trust a face like this? Unfortunately, Beckett's chin like a newly opened eraser doesn't make LaCroix any happier hearing that his shiny new toy has been stolen. So, while he oversees the blood hunt on Nines Rodriguez, Tyler once again gets sent on a mission. Find and recover the sarcophagus. The first step on her investigation, the shadowy Nosferatu Elder. The only other vampire who knew where the sarcophagus was. Gary and his Nosferatu are hiding out in the streets beneath Hollywood, in Anarch territory. LaCroix warns Tyler to play nice with the local Baron Isaac Abrams, but also to not be drawn in by his propaganda. Oh, if he only knew. Once she's in Hollywood, Abrams, of course, makes Tyler do him a favor before he gives any information about the Nosferatu's whereabouts. Thankfully, this one is much more straightforward than anything the Vormans had Tyler doing. Just recover a simple VHS tape. Not too bad. So she goes to meet the guy with the tape, and he doesn't have it. The tape apparently contained some absolutely grotesque acts. The kind of thing that gives a poor guy like this nightmares. Worse, ever since he got the tape, he's felt eyes following him wherever he goes. Before he can tell Tyler where he hid the tape...
Look, you need to find Ginger Swans. Huh? What the hell was that? Oh, shit. Did you see that? I'm getting the fuck out of here. What the... Oh, Christ!
Oh, boy. Look, man, I know this tape is scary, but you can't just keep running Oh. Oh, no. Thankfully, Tyler still manages to find the tape using the recently deceased's last words. Ginger Swan, a famous actor buried in the local mausoleum. As it turns out, the tape actually is relevant to Tyler's case. A powerful Sabbat vampire from the monstrous Tzimisce clan is behind this tape and the creatures in it. And as it turns out, around the time the tape started circulating, the Nosferatu went missing. So, Isaac bets this Tzimisce could answer Tyler's questions. Arriving at the mansion in the hills, something is wrong with this house. The walls are pink and smell of meat. The railing is made of bleached bone, and the whole place is swarming with flies. This is, to put it inelegantly, a meat house. And in the basement, she meets the bastard responsible for this. This Tzimisce has been creating these creatures and sending them into the sewers to gouge out the eyes of the Camarilla, aka the Nosferatu. So, if Tyler wants to get to the Nos, she'll have to get through him. And she does. Yeah, the Tzimisce just kind of slinks away after a couple gunshots. It's likely Tyler will run into him again later, though. I mean, after all, no elder is gonna lay down and die from a couple of gunshots, right? With the mastermind gone, Tyler ventures into the sewers of Hollywood, and it is rough. Tyler ends up down there for a few nights on end, without a single human in sight. The nightmares clogging the sewers take every bullet, every ounce of blood she throws at them, and the further and further she goes, the more she just feels like she's walking in circles. It isn't long before she's essentially dragging herself through the damp halls of the Warrens, barely clinging to her unlife. After who knows how long, though, she finally makes it to Gary's doorstep. Gary knows what the sarcophagus is, of course, but he wants a favor before he'll share that information. Barabbas, an agent of the Nosferatu, recently went missing in Chinatown, and Gary needs someone to go and find him. Apparently, Chinatown isn't run by the Camarilla, or the Anarchs, or even the Sabbat, but a mysterious fourth faction called the Kuei Jin, creatures that are kind of like vampires, but distinct in a number of different ways. They also apparently hate the Kindred, and have been waging a war for control of LA for years now. Great, more politicking. Tyler arrives in Chinatown and meets with the leader of the Kuei Jin, Ming Zhao. Zhao is polite enough, but incredibly condescending, claiming that Kuei Jin are unequivocally just better than Kindred, because they're brought into this world for a purpose, and yada yada yada. Tyler is just tired of all of this bullshit. In fact, she's grown tired of a lot of things, as the sheer desperation she experienced in the Warrens has pushed her to start feeding more frequently on humans. Tyler's search for Barabbas leads to multiple encounters with the organized crime syndicate of the Tong, including her having to sneak into their club. At the club, she meets the gang's leader Johnny, apparently the man who had kidnapped Barabbas, but he wasn't working alone. As it turns out, Johnny was being payrolled by a vampire hunter, simply known as the Mandarin, and he's the one who has Barabbas. So, Tyler heads to confront the Mandarin and walks right into his trap, becoming a test subject for these wannabe hunters. They put her through a scientific gauntlet of tests, testing her resistance to wounds, the effect of crosses on vampires, the effect of poison on vampires, and the effect of a gas explosion on bulletproof glass. Oh wait, that was Tyler's idea. After taking out the scientists, the security, and the Mandarin himself, Tyler finds and frees Barabbas from his cell. The two then tear through the facility, picking off any security and wiping the servers of any damning information. And this time, Tyler doesn't give a second thought for those she's slaughtering. Even if she hadn't just been made to jump through hoops for these sick fucks, she was well beyond seeing these hunters as anything but obstacles. With Barabbas free and returned to the Warrens, Gary spills the beans over the phone. He, quite unabashedly as well, sold the sarcophagus to someone who was offering a lot more money than LaCroix, the corrupt, incestuous, death-worshipping vampire crime syndicate of the Giovanni, who, as it turns out, are holding a little mafia get-together in a nearby mansion. After nabbing an invitation off of a drunk guest and her husband, Tyler convinces one of the Giovanni to let her into the mansion's basement and the catacombs beneath, crawling with zombies. After fighting her way through the hordes of undead, she encounters two Kuei-Jin warriors in the basement, guarding the sarcophagus. While attempting to intimidate her into leaving, they let slip that LaCroix and Ming Zhao have had some sort of alliance for a while now, completely altering the dynamic of the four factions. Once the warriors are dealt with and she has the sarcophagus, Tyler reports the alliance to the Anarch movement, but doesn't let LaCroix know that she knows. For now, LaCroix is just obsessed with opening his new toy, even enlisting the help of Beckett to do so. Unfortunately, Beckett needs some assistance himself, specifically that of Ingvar Johansson, a mortal archaeologist who came to LA for the sole purpose of studying the sarcophagus. Unfortunately, Johansson was just recently abducted by vampire hunters, apparently for his own protection. So Tyler breaks into the monastery and confronts Bach, the leader of this hunter sect. And it's here we see how far Tyler has fallen in her time as a vampire, picking off the hunters with a brutal precision. LaCroix didn't need a detective, a lockpick, a spy. He needed an assassin, and that is what Tyler has become. She picks off the hunters with ruthless efficiency before finally getting to Johansson. Apparently, the sarcophagus requires a key to be opened, a key that was found on the expedition, but that went missing before the sarcophagus was even sent to the museum. It's not much of a lead, but it's a lead. But before Tyler can follow up on it, she heads downtown to find the city covered in burning wreckage. Apparently, the Sabbat has gotten word of the sarcophagus's arrival and raided LaCroix's tower to try and get at it, seeking the power that comes with consuming the blood of an ancient vampire, a sick Sabbat practice known as diablerie. LaCroix's second-in-command, his sheriff, had managed to push back the invading force, but now Tyler was tasked with driving the Sabbat out entirely, again being made into LaCroix's personal assassin. Tyler breaks into the rundown hotel where the Sabbat make their home and fights her way through hordes of Sabbat, all culminating in a standoff with Andre, the Zamitsi she fought in Hollywood and leader of the Sabbat. Andre takes on a terrible form for battle, leaping from pool of blood to pool of blood like a macabre shark. Tyler is forced to pull out all the stops to take on this feral nightmare. By which I mean her shotgun that she's used most of the game. Well, the other one bites the dust. Outside of the hotel, Tyler is confronted by Ming Zhao. She confesses to forming an alliance with LaCroix in an attempt to drive the other factions from the city. She even admits to framing Nines for the death of Grout, taking his form and forcing Tyler to act as a witness. But she's also recently cut ties with LaCroix due to his insistence on finding the sarcophagus. Zhao tries to form an alliance with Tyler, but the Kuei-Jin are the only faction in this city that she trusts less than the Camarilla. So she tells Zhao to fuck off and returns to LaCroix, finally confronting him about what she knows. LaCroix, of course, claims to have no idea what Zhao is talking about. But upon hearing about her confession, he does decide to cancel the blood hunt on Nines, and sends Tyler to relay his message.
After all, you've been working for them all this time.
Oh. Fuck. If Tyler's heart could beat, it would be racing right now. Thankfully, the Croy shows no real anger at her betrayal. After all, regardless of her allegiances, she's been doing his dirty work since night one. So what has her alliance really gotten her? Or the movement? Tyler pops down to the last round and relays the Croy's message. Damsel is rightfully pissed, but the bad blood between the Camarilla and Anarchs has nothing on the outright war between the movement and the Kuei Jin. So Damsel gives Tyler the location of Nines' hideout so the two can negotiate in person. Out in Griffith Park, the two have a discussion about the alliance. Nines is more than happy to stick it to the Kuei Jin, but is suspicious of the Camarilla's true motives. And the sudden forest fire doesn't help. The two are closer to the cliffside than the forest, so it can't really hurt them, but it wasn't designed for them.
Come on, kid, we gotta get inside that building until it comes back.
This is Tyler's first encounter with a werewolf, and nothing can even hurt this thing. So for the first time in a while, Tyler is really forced to use her head. She gives the werewolf the runaround for a while, waiting for the gondola to come up. She finally manages to get the thing off of her back by crushing it between the giant metal doors of the observatory. Tired, scared, and betrayed, Tyler limps into the gondola and falls unconscious. The next thing she knows, she wakes up in her old Santa Monica apartment, with Smiling Jack standing over her. The meeting with Nines was a trap, set up to take out the both of them in one fell swoop. Since Tyler had survived, but Nines was nowhere to be seen, the Croy had framed Tyler for Nines' death and called for a blood hunt. The entire city is going to be after Tyler tonight. After fighting her way through the death-riddled streets of Santa Monica, she manages to get into a cab and speed away. She's at a crossroads. The Croy betrayed her, most of the Anarchs think she's betrayed them, and after everything she's done, she can't even cling to the moral high ground for support anymore. Some part deep within her just wants to leave LA, maybe even leave California. But no. No. That would be quitting. And Tyler Hendricks does not quit. So, she turns to her head and her heart for directions. And really, those two would only ever lead her to one place.
Rumor is you killed me.
So, Nines is alive. In fact, he managed to fucking wreck the werewolf that attacked him, and is not too shy to brag about it. He, Damsel, and Skelter are all holed up in Hollywood, the last true bastions of the movement. And now, Tyler stands among them. Tyler steps up to the Kuei Jin temple armed to the teeth. She's come to truly resent the self-righteous hypocrisy of the Kuei Jin. Who are they to presume that her unlife, her immortality was without meaning, while they and they alone held some divine purpose? So she wholesale slaughters their forces, even taking out Ming Zhao herself after an intense and definitely well-designed battle with no mechanical faults whatsoever. Now that Zhao is dead, and Tyler has the key to the sarcophagus, there is only one way, one place, that this could all end. LeCroy has put his tower on total lockdown. Regular police, SWAT teams, vampire grunts, even a sheriff are all on guard as she arrives. At one point, the sheriff shapeshifts into a massive bat-like creature on the roof of the tower. Masquerade be damned, but Tyler will not be stopped. LeCroy tortured her, put her on trial for no crime of her own, sent her all across this city, and when he was done with her, he tossed her to the wolves. No more. She was in control here. After all of this, Tyler and the Croy stand face to face, where the cunning leader gives way to the spoiled, petulant child underneath, stamping his feet and demanding she hand over the sarcophagus key. Tyler tries to play the bigger woman to mixed results.
Give me the key.
And after all of this, after the Croy's incapacitated, after the tower's emptied of all threats, Tyler is given a chance at true power. The sarcophagus, and whatever lies within, could grant her a chance to make her own fate. It could also take her mind, use her body as a vessel for the end of all things. It was ultimately a coin toss, a matter of luck. And when it comes down to dumb luck or skill and conviction, there is only ever going to be one right answer.
Here's your prize, LaCroix. Nines Rodriguez sends his regards.
You fool! You had it in your grasp! You had Los Angeles in your hands, and you threw it all away! That's why you're not a leader, why you'll never be anything but an errand boy. I'll build a new world order. Tell your anarchs, their days are numbered. Now, my sacrifice. Who are you?
Now ain't that a beautiful thing? Hey, mess around, buddy. I'm talking to you. You don't really talk much, do you? Hey, it happened just like you said. They never even knew what hit them. Threw that sarcophagus out there, and they just tore each other up trying to get to it. And the kid worked out all right, huh?
Remember, wherever we go, it is the blood of Cain which makes our fate. Farewell, vampire.
Thanks for watching. Transrights.